Several Supreme Court decisions were released today. One involved transgender athletes.
The Supreme Court upholds the transgender sports ban in 2 states, Idaho and West Virginia. The justices ruling the states can block transgender athletes who are biological males from participating in girls' sports teams at both public schools and universities. Justice Kavanaugh writing the opinion for the 6-3 majority.
Correspondent Laura Winters reporting, and the justices also upheld a long-standing belief in birthright citizenship.
The justices, in a decision in a New Hampshire case Tuesday, relied on a long-settled understanding of the 14th Amendment, adopted after the Civil War, and more recent federal laws in ruling anyone born in the country is a citizen, with limited exceptions. The Republican president's restrictions had been blocked by several lower courts and had not taken effect. 3 conservative justices would have allowed the restrictions to take effect.
Correspondent Bernie Bennett. Temperatures for some of this week's knockout round games could prove dangerous for World Cup players and fans.
A threatening heat dome will engulf the central and eastern part of the country this week, with heat index temperatures, which combine air temperature with humidity, soaring into the triple digits in some places. Conditions will bring above average temperatures to World Cup host cities like Boston, Philadelphia, and Kansas City, Missouri, all of which have open-air stadiums. Bob Agnew reporting.
It's a hot one for millions of people in the Midwest and Great Lakes states. Intense heat and humidity are baking the region with no immediate relief. The National Weather Service says conditions are dangerous. The heat index is exceeding 100 degrees in some areas. On Wall Street, a good day as the Dow was up by 136 points. The Nasdaq rose 393. The S&P advanced 58. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Health insurance rates are surging in America, leaving millions without affordable options. If you're sick of having paychecks eaten up by healthcare costs or dealing with mega corporations, then listen to this. Christians don't need to waste money on a broken system. That's why I want to tell you about Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's an alternative to traditional health insurance at half the cost. With CHM, fellow believers contribute monthly to help pay each other's medical bills. There's no enrollment period, so you can join anytime. And you aren't restricted to provider networks, so you choose the doctors and hospitals you want. It's that simple. CHM is not insurance. It's a ministry that puts faith into action. Feel the difference of financial support and biblical care from fellow believers. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
Ford is the latest automaker to issue a vehicle recall.
The automaker is recalling more than 741,000 vehicles in the U.S. A transmission issue could damage the parking system, which could increase the risk of a crash or injury. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says the recall includes certain Ford F-150, Lincoln Aviator, Ford Explorer, Lincoln Navigator, and Ford Expedition vehicles with the model years between 2018 and 2021. Rich Thomason, Washington.
U.S. job openings stayed at a surprisingly strong 7.6 million in May as the American labor market remains resilient in the face of the economic shock from the Iran war. Forecasters had expected employers to post just 7 million openings in May. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
This program is brought to you in part by Ability Tree Experts. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals.
Call 281-441-4179.
From the KSEV Weather Center. Tonight will be mainly clear and humid with a low temperature of 78. Tomorrow is expected to be partly sunny with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots during the afternoon, reaching a high of 96. Tomorrow night will be partly cloudy and humid with a low of 78. Looking ahead to Thursday, it will be partly sunny and humid with a chance of a thunderstorm in 1 or 2 spots in the afternoon with a high of 91. With the KSEV Weather Center forecast, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jason Caterina.
Checo Pro Joe here. My guest this week will be Cody Johnson from Garage Door Doctor. For all of your garage door needs, contact Garage Door Doctor at 281-343-3632.
Join Joe every Saturday at 1 o'clock here on AM 700 KSEV and AM 1540 KGBC, the voice of Texas.
Thank goodness our weather experts are providing us with hurricane tracking charts and reminding us to be prepared for big storms. But they overlook one very important thing, the damage and destruction from broken limbs and uprooted trees. Call Louis Flory at Ability Tree Experts today, my friend for nearly 40 years, at 281-441-4179, and let him explain how this problem can be minimized with professional pruning. You see, when the tree canopy is too thick and dense, the tree can be completely blown over and tree limbs broken, causing terrible damage to the tree and maybe your home. Where tree limbs break, sap will ooze, and that attracts harmful insects. So you need to call Louis Flory today at 281-441-4179 and have his experts come out and professionally prune your trees to withstand sudden storms that are so frequent this time of year. Visit their website at abilitytrees.com. That's 281-441-4179. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's ChrisXradio. ChrisXradio.
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink.
And now, your host.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Chris X.
What a day, right? What a day. Good afternoon. Welcome to Chris X Radio. I'm the aforementioned X-Man. Glad to have you here with us as we're ready to rock and roll here for the next 2 hours here on the Voice of Texas, 700 AM, 1540 AM. You can find us on the interwebs at KSEVradio.com. Of course, the KSEV Radio app to your smartphone. And then, of course, you can also watch the video. The video, if you happen to be on social medias, on Twitter X, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube. I think that's all of them. But we're glad to be here with you here on a Supreme Court Demonium Day. There's a lot going on, not only with the U.S. Supreme Court, but the Texas Supreme Court. We'll be joined by Holly Hansen at the bottom of the hour. She's with the Texan News. She's got a couple articles we'll get into. One, the Texas Supreme Court has halted Harris County's Illegal Immigrant Defense Fund, a fund that has been operating since 2020. That's right. In the middle of the pandemic, Lena Hidalgo decided we're going to pay for illegal immigrants' legal fees to fight being deported with your tax dollars. Well, Ken Paxton decided to fight it, and the Texas Supreme Court ruled, sorry, you're going to have to halt that program. So we'll get into that with Holly Hansen. She also has another article from the U.S. Supreme Court that rules smartphone geofence warrants are subject to Fourth Amendment protections. This is with increased challenges with police that are requesting cell phone location data. Once again, remember, this is what they use. Well, Scott Phillips and Catherine Engelbrecht used to discover voter fraud, and they ruled against it, said you cannot use that in a court of law, and then threw them in jail during the midterms. But then they turned right around and used every bit of that, the feds did, to hunt down grandmas who walked around the U.S. Capitol on January 6th and threw them behind bars. So it's a lot. It also happens to be Taco Tuesday, so we can debate tacos. I don't know if I'm up for tacos tonight. I don't know what I woke up with a slight scratchy throat again. I know I had one of these a couple weeks ago and I kind of fought it off, and then here I am back again. So guess I need to load up on the vitamin C. But I got a little bit of a scratchy throat. And once again, I said it's Supreme Court Demonium, Texas Supreme Court Demonium. A serious mixed bag of rulings today. And also, James Talafrico's lead over Ken Paxton has evaporated. It is gone. he never really had a lead over Ken Paxton. He had a lead over Ken Paxton or John Cornyn, and then once that race was decided, well, there went his lead. And by the way, I've been seeing his commercials constantly now. Him in some kind of fake store with a fake bag of groceries, and him trying to take credit for lowering, voting for the largest tax reduction in Texas history. Was he for that? Or is he a Democrat? Last time I checked, the Democrats are trying to raise your taxes. And he's claiming, I'm here for you. I'm doing, and then he goes and gets in a truck. I don't believe the store is real. I don't believe he's real. And I don't believe the truck is real, or at least really his. And I wonder what the bag of groceries is. I have no idea. Okay, so on the national level, the U.S. Supreme Court today voted 5-4 to reject President Trump's reform of the nation's birthright citizenship policy, which is a perverted, interpretation of it. And the Supreme Court decided to pervert it further today. That now will grant the huge prize of citizenship to nearly any infant born in the United States. Well, no, all infants, I guess. Even if the parents are illegal immigrants or temporary visitors. So they ruled that birthright citizenship is legal. Has anyone ever read the 14th Amendment? Is that what it was for? The 14th Amendment granted the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1868, grants citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States. It ensures equal protection under the law. It was a key part of Reconstruction amendments aimed at addressing the rights of formerly enslaved people. If you will remember, for those who study history, like I do, the 14th Amendment was designed to make sure that former slaves and their children were American citizens. If they were born here, they got American citizenship because Democrats didn't want to allow them to be citizens. So as part of the Reconstruction amendments, it was designed to address issues related to citizenship and the rights of formerly enslaved people following the Civil War. But it was never about providing citizenship to people who come to our country illegally and having kids. It was never about people who do birth tourism, who fly to America with 9-month pregnant women and then have their kids here and then take their kids back to their home country, but now they have the same citizenship that you or I have. It was never about that. But somehow they have perverted this 14th Amendment to include that, and now the Supreme Court has, I'm not quite sure, did they hold it up today or did they just rule against Trump's executive order? But we can get into that. Also, the dissents were, it was 5-4. It was all the ladies and John Roberts. But there are 3 lefty whack jobs on the Supreme Court. The Kagans, the Sotomayors, and the Ketanji Brown Jackson. They're all going to vote the way that they vote. They're all going to be the lefties. They don't care about law. They care about what they feel like. And then you throw in Amy Kobe Bryant every now and then. I heard somebody call her that. That's pretty funny. So Amy Kobe Bryant joined. And then John Roberts, who's just a loser. The process of simply appointing someone to get nominated to the Supreme Court or to get elected to the Supreme Court, appointed, has become perverted by Democrats so majorly that it's very difficult. They told us it was the end of the world. They made Kavanaugh out to be the supreme rapist. He's a rapist. I guess, of course, he was, quote, conservative, so he's a racist, too. Justice Sam Alito said birthright citizenship is grotesque. I don't know of any other country that has it. Does anybody know the other countries that actually participate in birthright citizenship? Where you can just go there and have a kid and then split and then raise that kid in another country being an illegal alien and bringing that kid back when the kid's 18 or 25 years old and then run for office and then try to take over the country? Does that sound like a good idea to you? Also, Clarence Thomas wrote a great dissent as well. So this is just one of the ones. Once again, this is Roe v. Wade. This is a terrible ruling by the Supreme Court, which I'm sure you've heard. If you're listening to Dana, she was talking about this earlier. She's still an angry elf. She was a very angry elf today. She's ready to burn it all down. I'm not ready to burn it all down. I'm ready to fight. Keep fighting. Especially as we approach our 250th birthday of the country, which I'm wearing another America flag shirts and got USA on it and all that for the 250. So thanks for the ruling, Supreme Court. Thank you so much for ruling that anybody can be an American. All you got to do is get over here. Legally, illegally, doesn't matter. It's funny, the 14th Amendment goes on to explicitly state that if you're a foreign dignitary and you're here on official business and you have a child, that child is not a U.S. citizen. So foreign dignitaries who have kids in our country they don't count. They're not U.S. citizens, but illegal aliens are. President Trump has laid out a pathway through Congress to end birthright citizenship after it was upheld today in the Supreme Court decision. He took to the Truth Social, called it too bad for America, said the congressional route, which birthright citizenship can be ended. The Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is too bad for our country, but we can easily make it up in Congress through legislation. With the support of the president, there has now been determined by this process. Trump wrote, no long and unwieldy, that's funny, constitutional amendment is necessary. Congress should start today to work on ending expensive and unfair to our country birthright citizenship. They will have my complete and total support. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, the Supreme Court also... you got some right. They also ruled today that states can determine whether they want to allow transgender athletes, men, from competing in women's sports. That basically states can say, no, you're a dude, you're not competing in women's sports. Okay, so they got that one right. The Supreme Court also struck down limits on coordinated spending between candidates and political parties, which looks like it'll serve as a boon for Republicans and the GOP as they seek to retain their majorities in Congress. So we can dig into that as well. And then, as I mentioned, James Talafrico's lead in the U.S. Senate race has all but evaporated. A new poll from New York Times, Siena, has the race tied up at 47% between Talafrico and Ken Paxton. By the way, the media, looking at their stories they're already putting out their hit jobs on Ken Paxton. So they're going to do everything they can to get rid of him. There was another poll from the University of Texas which shows Paxton up by 1 point. And then there's some others where Paxton leads 45.2% to Talafrico's 44.6%. That's in the Real Clear Politics. Realize the University of Texas poll had Talafrico up by 8 before the Republican primary was done. Interesting how they did that, huh? Needless to say, that's done. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and as we get closer to November. The article goes on to talk about Jasmine Crockett. Said as flawed as she is, she's a very flawed candidate, she would have appealed to more of the Democrat base as well as black voters. The effeminate but totally not gay Talarico has no appeal for black voters at all. And he's a total phony running around driving a pickup truck with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. The Irishman Beto O'Rourke, couldn't win Texas, and Talarico is a Beto minus testosterone. Someone called him Pedo O'Rourke. I thought that's pretty funny. People tell me things. I don't know who it was. People tell me things. But the truth is, this is still Texas. And it's weird you've got this trans-obsessed mama's boy who's never held a real job. Everything that comes out of his mouth is well-rehearsed. You can tell the guy literally is reading lines or reciting lines. But there's something deeply unsettling and more sinister about Talafrico, who looks and sounds harmless as he spreads, heresy meant to deliberately fool people into believing embracing transsexualism, homosexuality, transvestitism, I didn't even know that was a word, is embracing Christianity. Somehow that is being Christian. He identifies as a Christian, but openly admits he hates Christianity and believes Christianity is a violent religion. Basically, he's no more of a Christian than probably a guy named Satan. Who? Satan? Satan? Where is the church lady when you need her? We'll see if Dana Carvey brings her back. And we'll talk to Holly Hansen at the bottom of the hour about this. The Supreme Court of Texas has issued an injunction against Harris County's initiative that provides taxpayer-funded legal defense to illegal immigrants facing deportation. That's right. Here in Harris County, they're taking your tax dollars and giving them to illegal aliens to fight being deported back to their countries because they have no legal right to be in our country. But they're getting your tax dollars to fight the legal system. So we will talk with Holly Hansen about that at the bottom of the hour. Let's go ahead and take a break. Here's where we're getting rolling. We'll come back. I'm going to hit a couple of things, and then we'll catch up with Holly Hansen. 281-558-KSEV if you want to try to get in. Maybe we can get one call in before we catch up with Holly. You're listening to Chris X Radio. We're just getting started. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Time. Nix Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nix Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nixplumbing.com.
MPL 38548.
After a hard rain, you can see them. The water stains on the ceiling or the dripping water from a recessed light. Now you start to get nervous because you know leaks can cause big problems.
Once the water enters the structure, the trouble starts. Water weakens rafters and beams over time. It soaks through drywall and damages the insulation in your home.
And Roland, don't forget about mold. It grows fast in our humidity and causes all kinds of health problems.
I'd really hate to see you spend thousands on expensive structural or drywall repairs or mold removal projects, especially when we can fix those leaks quickly at Tejas Roofing.
And most of our leak repairs are under $500. This is Deb and Roland Tejada from Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. Call us when you first see that leak, 281-251-0304. See our work online at TejasRoofingandContracting.com. Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Do your employees need training in cybersecurity protocol? Call Tactical Cyber Services to discuss options and make sure your company is secure. Call 713-229-0030 or go online to tacticalcyberservices.com.
Chris X here to tell you about Humble Amco Transmission and AC Specialists. People who know go to Amco. I personally trust Jay Streckfus and Humble Amco with all of my vehicle's needs. With complete car care, they'll take care of all of your auto needs as well. Always a free check engine light inspection, and tell them that Chris X sent you for a free engine scan. Call Jay today at 281-446-0862. That's 281-446-0862 or online at humbleamco.com.
Everyone knows the BBB is the Better Business Bureau, but depending on what you need, it's the Better Plumber Bureau, the Better Auto Mechanic Bureau, the Better Accountant Bureau. That's because the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check that business out first so you don't get ripped off bureau. Be smart. Always look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
You know, where we go in life matters, and what we do matters, and we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage, and we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. You know, we live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source, and these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
But my mama said, this movie's forever tied to The Waterboy. I'm sorry, this song is forever tied to the movie The Waterboy. Which, by the way, this is a great Lenny Kravitz song. And Lenny Kravitz has a few great songs. Let Love Rule is a good one. Of course, My Mama Said, Always on the Run. And then Are You Gonna Go My Way is a great song. I was never a big fan of It Ain't Over Till It's Over. That one, I didn't really like that one very much. And his remake of American Woman, I liked for about 5 minutes, and then it got overplayed a gazillion times. I mean, he actually did a pretty good job on it, and I'll give him credit for that. But I would not put that remake anywhere near the remake of You Really Got Me by Van Halen or The Power Station, Bang a Gong. That's just a really good one. That one's a little bit dated, but not really. When I hear You Really Got Me by Van Halen, it sounds like it could have came out yesterday. And then, of course, the guitar stuff is just, that's from another planet. Anyway, welcome back to Chris X Radio. I'm the aforementioned X-Man here on your Taco Tuesday edition of the program. It is Supreme Court Demonium today, and also Texas Supreme Court Demonium. What do I mean by that? We got a whole lot of Supreme Court rulings came out today. It was a mixed bag, to say the least. They ruled that birthright citizenship is the law of the land. People can come over here. You can be a Chinese citizen, a member of a Chinese country, and send your pregnant women over here, and if they have their babies on American soil, they are as American as you or I. And then they can go take off, go back to their own country, be raised in China and indoctrinated by a communist regime, and then they can come back when they're 21 or 25 or 30. But they're still entitled to all of the same benefits that you have for being an American. It also goes with illegal immigrants. People that break into our country illegally and then have a baby, and now they're tied. And then, of course, you've got like I said, the chain migration. You've got that stuff. It's what the Supreme Court ruled today. Once again, it doesn't change anything. We're already there. But that is basic suicide for a nation. Now, as Justice Alito called it, grotesque. In his judgment, he said it's a mistake. He wrote a dissent to the 5-4 decision, continued in plain language to show how the decision endorses birth tourism. It would automatically grant full citizenship to foreign adults who have never lived a full day in the United States. We should not adopt an erroneous interpretation of the 14th Amendment simply out of fear of the consequences of rocking the boat as a reaction to current immigration policy, he wrote. Many children are born to foreign parents who are subject to a foreign power, which should make their children ineligible for citizenship, period. Alito's dissent echoed that of Clarence Thomas, who argued the court's majority imposition of a political project built on medieval feudal laws from pre-modern Europe. It's a pretty good point. Needless to say, we know who voted for it and who voted against it. Amy Coney Barrett, or Amy Kobe Bryant, is what I heard earlier. Amy Kobe Bryant joined in with the other ladies. So there was 4. And then, oh, shocker, John Roberts. Who would have ever guessed that? Now, oddly enough, they also ruled today that states can stop these transgender athletes, these men, from competing in women's sports. That makes sense. We don't want to allow dudes, because they're taking over women's sports, which is insane. We don't want to allow that to continue. So they voted against that. Okay, you can't do that. But you can come over here and have a baby, and then they automatically get citizenship no matter what. The Supreme Court also struck down limits on coordinated spending between candidates and political parties, which will serve to most likely help Republicans as the GOP works to maintain their majorities in Congress. And then, of course, you got James Talafrico, whose lead is all but evaporated here for the U.S. Senate. So you're going to see a lot of his commercials. I'm already seeing them. Him basically campaigning against everything that he's ever voted for or against. So there is that. And then I mentioned, in the next segment, we'll catch up with Holly Hansen. She wrote an article here, one of her articles, as the Supreme Court of Texas has issued an injunction against Harris County that are providing taxpayer-funded legal defense to illegal immigrants facing deportation. So we'll get on that with Holly here in the next segment. She's also got another article regarding the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on smartphone geofence warrants, saying they're subject to the Fourth Amendment. So let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back, pick up with Holly Hansen. She's our guest. She joins us here on ChrisX Radio. Always a fan of Holly Hansen, who's with the Texan News. She's doing great work over there, and I try to get her on around once a month. Sometimes I'm a little slow, and we're a little slow. Pardon my friend. He's a little slow. Anyway, Holly joins us here on the other side of this break. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to ChrisX Radio.
Hi, this is Michael Miller. Join me this weekend for the Backyard Bay radio program, now at our new time, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m., right here on AM 700 KSEV, The Voice.
For many years, the Pine Box has been helping families gain insight into the often confusing and extremely expensive task of arranging a loved one's funeral. I have worked with Pine Box in the death of 2 family members because I know I can trust Chip Beresford at the Pine Box, he's the owner, to be sure that he walks me through that process and that I am prepared for the funeral and that I get the quality I seek without breaking the budget. Because it's a very difficult thing. No one wants to feel like a cheapskate handling a funeral of a loved one. But you also can't afford to go broke either. You know, funerals are statistically the 3rd largest expense in someone's life. The Pine Box sells the same caskets and funeral merchandise that is offered at funeral homes, but at a tremendous savings, and delivery is immediate and free within the Houston area. Visit their website, thepinebox.com, or call Chip directly at 1-888-PINE-BOX. That's 1-888-PINE-BOX. I trusted them, and you can. The Pine Box.
If you're looking for the best generator when it comes to powering your home when in need, then join Jim Cloud for the Checkapro A&A Gen Pro Show every Thursday at 1 p.m. here on AM 700 KSEV and AM 1540 KGBC, the voice of Texas.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Usually they happen on the weekends, holidays, or while you're away on vacation. I'm Richard Sod, president of Nick's Plumbing. When you find yourself facing a plumbing emergency, call the licensed and experienced professionals at Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services. Nick's Plumbing has been Houston's first choice for all your plumbing needs since 1979. Our experts can take your most difficult plumbing issues and fix them fast, fix them right, and usually for less than you'd expect. Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services is the right choice for any plumbing job, from a leaky faucet, whole house repipe, or a complete sewer line replacement. You can count on Nick's Plumbing to do the job right. With over 40 years in business and over 150,000 satisfied customers, Nick's wants to be your plumbing company. Nick's Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nicksplumbing.com.
MPL 38548.
Call Nick's Plumbing today. We're on the way.
Okay, I got a text message. I'm going to have to tell that story a little later. Welcome back to Chris X Radio. Glad to have you here with us on our Taco Tuesday edition of the program. It is Supreme Court demonium today, and it also happens to be Texas Supreme Court demonium. Joining us now is one of my favorite reporters. It is Holly Hansen. She's with the Texan.news, the Texan News. She's a great reporter. You can find her on Twitter, which is where I follow her, at Holly S. Hansen on Twitter. So make sure you're following her as she does just great work over there with the Texan. And she's got a couple of articles here. One regarding the U.S. Supreme Court, which ties right in with Supreme Court demonium, but also the Texas Supreme Court has weighed in on Harris County just determining arbitrarily they decided they're going to use our tax dollars to spend for legal defense for illegal immigrants fighting being deported. Anyway, Holly Hansen joins us here now. Holly, thanks for being here. Always good to catch up with you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Well, I'm always glad to have you on the program because you do such good work over at the Texan. And if people don't know, they need to be going to the Texan.news and reading your work as well as your colleagues, because you guys focus on things, well, mainly Texas related, but you in particular, you cover a lot of stuff that affect us right here in Harris County. And this article, once again, I wanted to make sure that I had you come on and go, because you went through the article, you spell out things very clearly where Harris County, well, the Supreme Court of Texas has halted Harris County's illegal immigrant defense fund, something that has been in operation since 2020. I don't think a lot of people realize that, Holly.
That's right, Chris. You know, we covered it, of course, at the Texan News when they created this program in 2020, but it really didn't get a lot of attention, maybe because there was so much going on in the year 2020. We all remember that. But what Harris County did is they acquiesced to a request from County Judge Lena Hidalgo to create this Immigrant Legal Services Fund. They initially allocated about $2 million to the fund, and as of last fall, they had spent over $8 million in providing these legal defenses for immigrants who were facing deportation. And then last October, they decided to allocate another $1.3 million to the fund, and that got the attention of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who then filed a lawsuit. Now, he did ask for an injunction from a lower court and from an appeals court. Neither one of those courts were willing to issue that injunction, but they did say that the case had some merit and could go forward. But just a few days ago, the Texas Supreme Court did issue that injunction and said Harris County has to stop funding this while this case is pending and while we look at what's going on here. Now, what the Attorney General's office has pointed out is that it looks like by using these taxpayer dollars to provide these legal funds or legal defenses for these immigrants, it violates part of the Texas Constitution. It's called the gift clause. And basically it says, you know, you can't hand out money that, you know, could be considered a gift or confers a private benefit on individuals or groups if it does not serve a legitimate public end. So to be clear, what Harris County has done, along with Bexar County and some of the cities in the state of Texas, is they've joined this Institute's SAFE network. It's called the Safety and Fairness for Everyone Network. It's founded by the Vera Institute for Justice. And they want these cities and counties across the country to provide taxpayer-funded programs that assist these people facing deportation, regardless of their criminal history. So even if someone's been accused of a crime, including felony crime, if they're facing deportation in Harris County and they fall under certain guidelines regarding their income, they can possibly get legal defense provided by county taxpayers to fight that deportation effort. So, you know, what the court is looking at here is the very likelihood that this program does violate that state constitutional provision. And Ken Paxton actually won also challenging Harris County's guaranteed basic income program, basically using the same argument that you can't just give out these gifts of taxpayer dollars without it, you know, really having a legitimate public interest purpose there. So, you know, the case isn't over. The courts are still considering the merits of the case, but for now it has been blocked, and we will just wait to see what happens next.
You know, it's interesting, Holly, because you take this in consideration with the Supreme Court ruling of the United States today with, that illegal aliens can come here and have babies, and those babies are entitled to all of the privileges that come with being an American citizen. And then you've got illegal aliens that are here that are, in the process of possibly being deported, and they're using our tax dollars to go and fund them to make sure that they can fight. So basically, they're fighting us with our money and our time and our efforts here in the. You wonder at what certain point is the levee going to break, if you will? Will there be a breaking of the levee? And then once again, this is another situation why Ken Paxton has been great as the Supreme Court. I'm sorry, the Texas Attorney General. With bringing in, taking things to the Supreme Court and fighting stuff like this, where people arbitrarily determine, like you said, Lena Hidalgo, I guess ultimately she was the one responsible for this fund that have determined, and they did it right in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if they were using pandemic funds, but whatever it was, they were using our tax dollars to provide legal services to people in our country illegally. And as the lawsuit states, and you cover this pretty well, this wasn't to American citizens. This wasn't to people here in Harris County, Texas citizens. It is to illegal immigrants, people that are here illegally. And you mentioned, we're not the only county. You mentioned in the article, was it Bexar County had a case like this as well?
That's right. Bexar County is also facing a lawsuit from Attorney General Ken Paxton. And just like in Harris County, the lower court judge, didn't buy it. In fact, I think in that case, the lower court judge dismissed the case, but the Attorney General's office has appealed that one as well. And, again, it's not just that these people are illegal immigrants. In some cases, they're actually being accused of crimes or may have been convicted of a crime. I mean, we had a report recently, too, that the ICE operations in the Houston region, they arrested more than 700 criminal illegal aliens in the Houston area just in the month of May. And probably about 70% of those had been accused or convicted of violent crime. So, I think there's a narrative out there that, ICE only targets or is targeting all kinds of people. It seems to me, just based on what I've learned, is that most of these enforcement efforts are focused, at least in the Houston area, on people who have been accused of crime. So, I think a lot of residents are probably rightly concerned about what the county is doing with taxpayer dollars, especially, we've learned, too, that, they're supposed to be managing these flood control projects. And I know that's not, the hottest topic because Hurricane Harvey happened almost 10 years ago now. But we're coming up on 10 years since that terrible, terrible flooding. And of the projects that we knew really needed to be constructed, a lot of them haven't even been started. And now the county is in danger of losing federal matching funds that were to help build those things. So, when you're looking at that, and yes, it all comes from different buckets, but when they see the county spending millions of dollars to defend these possible, criminal suspects and illegal immigrants, but they're really not spending as much time focusing on things like flood mitigation that could be lead to a very dangerous situation. It is a little frustrating.
Yeah, once again, I personally suffered a catastrophic loss because of Hurricane Harvey. And as you mentioned, they had allocated funds, quote unquote, to go and dredge the Bear Creek Reservoir, which never happened. We don't know what happened with that money. It never occurred. And then, of course, the other money that they've taken in to combat flooding, which was not taken in. I know it was a historic event. We've had 2 judgments now, which, by the way, I haven't seen a penny. I could really use some of the money that I lost from Hurricane Harvey. But nonetheless, I'm glad to see that Harris County has determined that they want to go ahead and prioritize illegal immigrants over American citizens and citizens of Harris County. The other thing, too, is now this isn't the only article that you've written. You wrote another one regarding the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that smartphone geofence warrants subject to the Fourth Amendment protections. Let's talk about that a little bit as well. I don't think there's some really odd things that have happened regarding geofencing and what happens with our cell phones. One is the movie 2,000 Mules that came out back in, I guess, before the last election, or 2020, the 2020 election between Catherine Engelbrecht and Scott Phillips, Well, they used geofencing stuff, and they were ruled against, saying you cannot use this in a court of law. But then they turned right around, and the feds used it to track down anyone who was anywhere close to the Capitol on January 6th. So it's a very weird position that we find ourselves in with the geofencing location data on our smartphones that should be under the protection of the Fourth Amendment. Is that what you cover in this article?
That's right. And it really is an interesting topic because, as technology evolves, then there's more and more ways for, your devices to track you and provide data to, government agencies. And so a lot of people don't realize that their cell phone is almost constantly sending out these location notices, right, and pinging, if you will. I think about every 2 minutes. And, you really are pressed to turn on those location services, although technically you have to opt in. Some of these phones, they prompt you all the time to turn those things on. So most people are walking around with this location service turned on. It's just the nature of it. And the question is, if police are trying to solve a crime and they try to obtain this information, we call it geofencing, your location data, is that a search under the Fourth Amendment? And if it is, you have to get a warrant, right? So you have to have some probable cause. And there have been a number of cases. There's some split decisions. But in this case, the Supreme Court of the United States has said, yes, in this case, looking at this data, it is a search under the Fourth Amendment. So you do have to get a warrant. And a lot of people are complaining that, well, it won't affect the outcome of this case. This guy was convicted of armed robbery. But it is important as we're looking at whether or not we have a right to privacy, right? And how far does that go? It doesn't mean police can't use that. Sometimes there's, these exceptions that allow them to use that information. But, the plaintiff in that case, argued that when you're walking around with your cell phone, it's like walking around having an ankle monitor attached to you all the time. So you are being monitored by someone. So this is a really interesting case. We have had the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which governs things here in the state of Texas, say that, pretty much every single geofence warrant is overly broad and probably not constitutional. But it does look like the Supreme Court did eke out, some exceptions. You can use the information, but you do have to make sure you get a warrant based on probable cause to do so. That case is not over. It's been sent back down to the lower courts. I know this gets down in the legal weeds, but it does kind of hearken to this concern we have about our privacy. And, some people have compared it to those automatic license plate readers that are reading your car license plate everywhere you go. But the courts seem to see that as a little bit different, because when you're driving your car on a public roadway that you don't have an expectation of privacy, but that cell phone data gets a little more personal and could be abused.
Yeah, we're talking with Holly Hansen. She's a reporter with the Texan News. It's the Texan.news if you want to go look up the work she's working on. It's funny. We went from, 1984, a warning to Big Brother is watching, to, Siri, order me a pizza. I'm sorry, Big Brother, order me a pizza, to, once again, if you use a map function, or once again, I know it's a privilege, not a right to drive, but yeah, we've got cameras everywhere, and we've got, once again, the geo-tracking data that's going on, or the geofencing, if you will. And it puts us at a real slippery slope, because you've got so many people now that have welcomed Big Brother into their homes, and a lot of people don't realize that stuff is being sold to third parties to sell you products and that sort of stuff. So there's a whole lot of other elements that go along, of course, with the privacy element of it. I'm assuming it's a bad idea. If I decide I want to go knock over a liquor store, probably be a bad idea to use my map function to get there and leave my phone on while I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think, your attorney would certainly recommend against that, although hopefully your attorney would recommend not knocking over the liquor store in the first place. But, there you are.
That does sound like kind of a bad idea. I mean, I could use some extra cash, but I'm not quite ready to knock over a liquor store. All right, so Holly, what do you got locked up and loaded? What are you working on these days? Because, man, it's going to be tough for you to hit, bigger articles than the Texas Supreme Court and then the U.S. Supreme Court, but it's not like you guys have a shortage of things to cover these days. You got any teasers for us coming up here?
Well, I'll tell you what, tomorrow I should be having an article published that relates to Harris County. It looks like the Office of the Texas Attorney General is also going to weigh in on a lawsuit pending against Harris County because the allegation is that Commissioner Adrian Garcia, Democrat out of Precinct 2, has illegally held 2 offices. And we'll be telling you more about that in our publication tomorrow.
Well, I'm very interested. I've been following this story for some time, and I know El Senador Paul Betancourt has been following it, and it's very interesting that, once again, you got Adrian Garcia, and they say he, technically just gave up his right as a Harris County commissioner when he accepted this other position, but I don't know. There seems to be a certain set of rules that some people play by, and then the rest of us play by another set of rules. But I'm so glad that you're keeping tabs on them and making sure that they're not doing it with virtual impunity, that the public gets a good idea. All right, tell people how they can follow you. I know, of course, they can read your work over the Texan.news, but how can everybody else follow you to make sure they keep up like I do?
Well, Chris, I'm on pretty much all the social media platforms, certainly Twitter, which we're now supposed to call X. I just can't get used to that, but I'm there. I post a lot of work there that I do, my colleagues do, and even other articles that I find interesting and relative to people who follow me. Of course, I have a Facebook media page. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. I'm out there. Look for me.
Yeah, and like I said, I follow you on Twitter at Holly S. Hansen. You're one of my favorite follows because I get to see whenever you update not only your work, but your colleagues and so many other things that are important to those of us who are trying to pay attention to what's happening not only with our tax dollars, but to what is happening in our general area. So it's always important, and it's good to get you on, even though, like I said, we didn't really get into the heated battle of Van Halen, Van Hagar, but we'll just save that for another day. Good reason to get you back on the program. Thanks for being here today, Holly.
Absolutely. You bet. Thanks for having me.
Always good to have you on the program. Holly Hansen, she's a reporter with the Texan News. Once again, I follow her on Twitter, X. I'm the same way, by the way. I always call it Twitter, X. I'll never get used to just calling it X, even though I'm Chris X. I should have some sort of a stake in the company, but I don't. At Holly S. Hansen, of course, I follow her on other social medias as well, but that's where I get almost all of the breaking stuff is coming. Like I said, anytime she's dropping news stories and information with her colleagues, I get it right there at Twitter X. It doesn't seem to get as suppressed, I guess, if it may be on some of the other social medias. All right, let's take a short break. We'll come back and wrap up this first hour of the program. Once again, Holly Hansen, reporter with the Texan News. Always appreciate her time. We'll come back and open up the phones if you want to join us. It is Supreme Court Demonium today. 281-558 KSEV. You're listening to Chris X Radio. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and prune tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory.
My friend for over 40 years.
Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
When it comes to garage doors, no one knows more than the doctor. Garage Door Doctor.
We got a call late New Year's Eve. A father with big plans for his family the next day said his garage door spring just snapped. He couldn't get his car out and wouldn't be able to get his family to where they needed to go. He felt stuck and alone. So we showed up fast with the right spring and the right parts to fix it right. We didn't talk about the price. We didn't wait till the morning. We fixed it right then. Because at Garage Door Doctor, it's never just about the job. It's about the person behind it. The dad, the veteran, the grandpa, the neighbor. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door Doctor. When you need help, we're the ones that show up. Call Garage Door Doctor today or schedule online at garagedoordoctor.biz. We fix garage doors fast with quality parts designed to last a lifetime because we're proud to serve the people who rely on us.
When it comes to garage doors, no one knows more than the doctor. Garage Door Doctor.
And is it 25 or 6-4? Still, I love the name of that song. That is such a great name. I love how it was just a working title and then it became the name of the song because it was too cool. And nobody knew what it meant for a million years. Well, probably 30 years. I didn't know what it meant. And then when I learned, I was like, whoa. I would have never guessed that in a million years. But Chicago, a little 25, 6-4. Welcome back to ChrisX Radio. You reached the final segment of the first hour. We have been discussing here on your Taco Tuesday edition. We have not been talking about tacos. We've been talking about Supreme Court Demonium and Texas Supreme Court Demonium with the lovely and talented Holly Hansen, a reporter with the Texan News. She was with us here in the last segment. If for some reason you missed the interview, you can always catch it on the podcast later when it's posted or on the videos that are, like I said, you can go pull up the video now and then rewind, or just the video will be posted immediately following the program over on Rumble, Twitter, X, YouTube, and, of course, Facebook. So you can do that there. You can go check out the thing. By the way, you know what? I looked. Maybe you guys can tell me. The podcast, somebody notified me that our podcast wasn't uploaded from last week. Now, this was a few days ago, and I'd forgotten. I guess I could go check right now. The podcast from not Friday, our Friday show on Thursday. I kind of jumped the gun there. There actually is the Amigos on Fridays, but if I go back and look, let's see, is our podcast from last Friday up, or last Thursday? I guess, are they there? I guess they're all there now, it looks like. I don't know. I can't tell. I shouldn't be doing this in the middle of the program here as we're wrapping up the first hour. But anyway, if you want to go catch it immediately, you can, like I said, on the videos that we're streaming online. And then, of course, once again, it'll be posted shortly after the show. It's Thursday. Last Thursday show. And it looks like I think it's up. Yeah, it was last Thursday was the 25th, I do believe, so I think it's up. So there you go. Anyway, welcome back to the program. Glad to have you here on our Taco Tuesday. I'm not really hungry. I ate late lunch today, so boy, I had a great meal. Just had a sandwich. That's always good. I've learned that here in these, we're still facing the Biden pricing that we had. Don't quite have the money I used to go and need lunch every day, and then we go eat dinner. I can't do that anymore. Can't afford it. So I try to eat lunch at home. So it consists of sandwich meat, which if I want to be really fancy, I'll go with the turkey. I like the honey roast turkey. I don't really like the smoked as much. But then what's funny is, as a kid, I remember eating at my parents' house, and Dad always had bologna, the Oscar Mayer bologna. Not the thick beef bologna stuff, just regular Oscar Mayer bologna. And, man, I loved that as a kid. And here's an adult, I will literally go buy packages of that and have that for lunch. Of course, it's got to have your mustard and bologna and then cheese, American cheese. Because I'm American, just like my shirt. America, as we head to the 250th anniversary. Is the Supreme Court going to outlaw American cheese? Are we only going to be allowed communist cheese here very soon? Well, once again, they ruled in rights of birthright citizenship, which for the life of me I cannot square that. I can understand how the leftist weirdos vote that way, but Amy Kobe Bryant and freaking John Roberts, that guy. Anyway, we got plenty to get into here in hour number 2. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV Tomball and AM 1540 KGBC Galveston.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The Supreme Court releasing decisions on court cases prior to the summer recess. Correspondent Laura Winters with reaction from President Trump.
President Trump taking to his Truth Social page, reacting to the Supreme Court ruling in favor of Idaho and West Virginia banning transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. The president writing in all caps the 2 words, big win. Then he goes on to say the United States Supreme Court just ruled against men playing in women's sports. Wow, that takes that ridiculous situation off the table. 3 explanation points.
The justices also upheld birthright citizenship by a 6-3 vote. New York Congressman Adriano Espaillat, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus chair, says the Constitution won today.
No president has the power to decide who an American is. The Constitution states it, and it does it in a very transparent and clear way.
New Jersey Republican Congressman Tom Keene reveals a depression diagnosis after returning to the House from a lengthy absence. Correspondent Bernie Bennett has more.
The Republican congressman said on Tuesday that his lengthy and previously unexplained absence from the House was due to being treated for depression, publicly elaborating for the first time on the medical condition that had kept him away from Washington. Keene made the disclosure in a floor speech when he returned to the Capitol after missing more than 100 votes since March 5th. Keene began his speech by saying it didn't feel natural to talk about himself, but he felt that he owed an explanation to the people of New Jersey's 7th District, his colleagues in the chamber, and the American people for his absence. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
Another good day on Wall Street with the Dow up by 136 points. The Nasdaq rose by 393 with the S&P 500 advancing by 58 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
In the War of 1812, our nation fought and won America's religious freedom. Today, that constitutional right is being assaulted once more from within.
Religious liberty and rights in general were under attack. We all of a sudden became the enemy.
In the important new documentary, By Dawn's Early Light, anti-Christian bias is exposed at the highest levels of government.
I got 6 months house arrest, 5 years probation.
I'm sorry, our rights have been suspended? Hard to believe that the instruments of government would ever be used to punish faith.
Follow the sweeping investigation of President Trump's task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. The governmental hostility and prejudice is uncovered, and Trump's fight to restore our constitutional liberties and religious freedom.
If we will not be governed by God, we must be governed by tyrants.
Don't miss this powerful new documentary, By Dawn's Early Light, the story behind our national anthem. Share it with your church, family, and friends. For a limited time, watch it free at ByDawnsEarlyLightFilm.com. ByDawnsEarlyLightFilm.com.
This True Sand commentary is brought to you by Ability Tree Experts. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals. Call 281-441-4179.
From KSEV, here's political contributor Ben Strusand.
Most polling shows that Republicans are going to have a tough time winning majorities in both houses of Congress in November. Voters blame Trump for inflation and believe that many of the necessities they need to purchase have become unaffordable. 2 out of 3 voters don't believe that preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon is worth the higher gas prices that they are paying. Voters never give a president credit for preventing bad things like a nuclear war from happening. President Trump should realize by now that the Islamic Republic will never agree to a deal that results in a Trump win. The mullahs read the polls and see the domestic political pressure to end the war. It's part of their strategy. We should stop chasing a bad deal. This does not mean that we should resume unlimited airstrikes, but rather targeted decapitation strikes against their leadership, as the Israelis used effectively. If Iranian leaders won't cut a deal, then let's get new ones. The real leverage we have against Iran is economic. We destroyed what Iran took decades to build. their defense industrial base used to manufacture drones, missiles, and nuclear weapons. Inflation in Iran is running at 40%. The blockade collapsed the revenue stream used by the Revolutionary Guard Corps, their security services, and all the government infrastructure. If our blockade is allowed to continue and not stopped by Democrats and a few lame duck Republicans in Congress, we can eliminate the mullah's leverage over its people. We don't need regime change to pressure them into a better deal for us. Just perseverance. Intercepting what leaks out via Iran's shadow tanker fleet will speed the process. The best guess is this pressure will take 6 months to show results, right around the time of the elections. I'm Ben Strusand, and that's my view.
Ben Strusand, only on AM 700 KSEV.
Tune in each Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for On the Money with your host and CEO of Allied Wealth Texas, Ryan Wheelis, who can help you live your richest life possible during your retirement years. That's each Sunday at 9 a.m. right here on AM 700 KSEV.
Thank goodness our weather experts are providing us with hurricane tracking charts and reminding us to be prepared for big storms. But they overlook one very important thing, the damage and destruction from broken limbs and uprooted trees. Call Louis Flory at Ability Tree Experts today. My friend for nearly 40 years, at 281-441-4179, and let him explain how this problem can be minimized with professional pruning. You see, when the tree canopy is too thick and dense, the tree can be completely blown over and tree limbs broken, causing terrible damage to the tree and maybe your home. Where tree limbs break, sap will ooze, and that attracts harmful insects. So you need to call Louis Flory today at 281-441-4179 and have his experts come out and professionally prune your trees to withstand sudden storms that are so frequent this time of year. Visit their website at abilitytrees.com. That's 281-441-4179. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's ChrisXradio. ChrisXradio.
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink.
And now, your host.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Chris X.
Say, I mean, we had Holly Hansen on from the Texan News. She's always great, talking about the Texas Supreme Court halting the county's illegal immigrant defense fund. Thanks a lot, Lena Hidalgo. America last. The Democrats are always America last. We'll take your tax dollars and make sure that we dump those on illegal immigrants so they can fight being deported. So your tax dollars are going to fight illegal immigrants from being deported. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal. Can I get my money back? No? Do we have oligarchs making those decisions for us? I guess so, here in Harris County. Anyway, welcome back to the program. I want to thank Holly for joining us here in the first hour. It is Supreme Court Demonium. Of course, Texas Supreme Court Demonium today as well. It is also Taco Tuesday, so glad to have you here with us. A seriously mixed bag of rulings today that came out of the U.S. Supreme Court. I say we'll get to that. Also, James Talafrico's lead over Ken Paxton has virtually evaporated. They kept saying he had a substantial lead over the nondescript Republican candidate, while Ken Paxton and then John Cornyn were embattled in a runoff. But now that Ken Paxton has won the nomination and he is the guy, that lead immediately evaporated for James Talarico. And they're already starting to run commercials. I'm so happy to know that James Talarico is working to make everything more affordable for Texans. And he was big time for the largest property tax cut. Was he? You know, I guess if we really wanted to, we could actually go look at his voting record in the Texas House. I'm going to say I bet it doesn't line up with the commercial that he is selling now. And then him getting in a truck with a bag of groceries out of some fake grocery store, or it looks like a convenience store. So we'll get into that. Also, by the way, a little breaking news. Authorities say at least one person was killed and multiple injuries have been reported after a vehicle crashed into a Nothing Bundt Cake store in Atascocita. Man, now that would just totally suck. By the way, those are the best cakes, hand down. I mean, those Nothing Bundt Cakes are amazing. I love those. But can you imagine going to get a Nothing Bundt Cakes and then you get run over and killed inside the store? So they'll keep us updated, I guess, on the local news, and we'll keep you updated if we hear anything on this. As I mentioned, Supreme Court demonium, the U.S. Supreme Court voted 5-4 today to reject President Trump's reform of the nation's birthright citizenship policy. It now grants the huge prize of citizenship to nearly all infants born in the United States, even to that of illegal immigrants and their children. If they're born here, they're American citizens. They can leave 5 minutes after being born, but if they're born on U.S. soil, they're American citizens. They have completely opened the door, which birth tourism already takes place. So now people coming from China can have kids and then take them right back to China, indoctrinate them in communism their entire life, and then bring them back. And then they can work to make us communist as well. I think we're seeing the results of this in places like New York, places that are voting for people like Commie Mamdani, weirdos like that. Justice Alito wrote a dissent, said birthright citizenship is grotesque. And, of course, Alito echoed the dissent of Justice Clarence Thomas, who said this is the majority's imposition is a political project built on medieval feudal laws from pre-modern Europe. It goes against what the 14th Amendment was actually designed to do. Those who are unfamiliar with the 14th Amendment ought to go read it. That was done in response to Democrats trying to not allow slaves to be citizens of America, citizens of our country when they were born on American soil. That is what it was for. It expressly says, hey, listen, this does not apply to foreign dignitaries who happen to be here on official business, and if they have a child here in America, they do not get citizenship. But somehow they perverted this 14th Amendment to now include illegal aliens who break into our country, or, as the Democrats have learned, we'll just open up the borders and import as many people as possible and let them have kids, and then you've anchored that baby along with the chain migration and then the birth tourism and everything else. It really is insane. But, like I said, I guess if Congress would get to work, they could fix it. We'll see. I was listening to Angry Elf Dana Lash earlier. She doesn't seem to have any faith that's going to happen. The other thing, too, I don't go crazy over any particular ruling because the only constant is change. Understand Roe v. Wade was the law for a long time, and then that changed. So how long will this be in? I don't know. We shall see. But like I said, this is the death of a nation. This will kill your country. You have a bunch of people being born here who have no ties to the country. They have no loyalty to the country, but they have all the great things that go along with being a citizen of the United States of America. President Trump laid out a pathway through Congress so we could end birthright citizenship. He took to Truth Social saying, too bad. But they can get, you can go back. You can get Congress to go through there and pass laws and either amend the Constitution or whatever. So we shall see. The Supreme Court also today ruled that states can stop transgender athletes, men, from competing in women's sports because we've seen this taking place all over the country, especially in these lefty-run areas. California, they just keep allowing dudes to go dominate women's sports, which is insane. That is almost as insane as allowing people who just show up, break into your country, and then have, American babies. What? If there is a law or an amendment or a constitutional right, there's always a Democrat to pervert it. So also the Supreme Court ruled they struck down limits on coordinated spending between candidates and political parties, which will probably help Republicans here in the midterms as they try to hang on to their majorities in Congress. We can get into that. And as I mentioned, James Talafrico's lead in the U.S. Senate race has evaporated. It's basically gone. They're at a dead heat, or even Ken Paxton slightly leading, according to some of the polls. So we shall see as we get closer to November. All right, tell you what, if you want to weigh in on the Supreme Court decision, I'd like to hear what you think about this, especially with birthright citizenship. 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. Let's go ahead and go to the phones, pick up with Francisco, who's been patiently holding. Francisco, thanks for hanging on. Welcome to ChrisX Radio.
How's it hanging, McFly?
It's good, man. How you doing, Francisco?
We're back, baby.
It's been a long time. I'm glad to have you back on the show.
Hey, listen, I got to reverse Uno for these progressive leftist twisted logic.
Yeah.
You there?
I'm here. I'm listening. Go right ahead.
Okay, I can barely hear you. Okay. So these people, when they come over, they wave their flags. They represent whatever country they come from. They have no loyalty. They have no representative of anything here of America. So wouldn't that make them representatives of the foreign diplomats or assistants to? And therefore, hey, you know what? Why not throw some of this logic back at these freaking progressive leftists?
It does show the lack of loyalty they have to our country, which makes it even more insane that the Supreme Court ruled that they have every right to citizenship, as do we. It's insane, Francisco. I mean, I look at it, I'm like, how do you come to this other than Trump derangement syndrome?
Yeah, hot dog. I don't know, man. I know there's something in there. There's something in there. We just got to dig deeper, baby.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for the call, Francisco. We do need to dig deeper. We need to go back. The other thing, too, is we need to go back and actually have people go and read the 14th Amendment. What was it designed for? What is it designed to do? How does this somehow apply to illegal aliens or people that are just using birth tourism to have babies in America just so they can be citizens and then taking them back to their home countries? What? Or like I said, the chain migration, and there's just so many different elements of it. It's insane. Like I said, it really is nuts. Anyway, 281-558-KSEV. If you want to join us, 281-558-5738. It's good to hear from you, Francisco. It seems to have been a while since we've had you on the show, so glad to hear back from you, and feel free to call back anytime. Always good to hear from you. All right, let's go to Chris, who's been patiently holding as well. Chris, thank you for hanging on. Welcome to ChrisX Radio.
Yeah, buddy. Real quick, I love Holly Hansen, but they're here illegally. They're already criminals, so we don't really need the distinction. But, I understand it. We have to appease mainstream society. Chris, I've called this show for many moons, and I've told you the Federalist Society and Mitch McConnell. It wasn't Cocaine Mitch that gave us Amy Coney Barrett. So I don't know how we're going to be able to come back from this. This was probably Donald Trump's. This is when his political instincts were not very robust at the time. They took advantage of him, and now we're paying for it. This is an awful day. This is one of the worst decisions maybe since Dred Scott, and that's not hyperbole. And just really demoralizing. It's like, where do you go from here?
It is a demoralizing ruling, but once again, this is in reference to the executive order that Trump did. I don't know exactly how this applies to the 14th Amendment, and from what Alito and Thomas wrote, it doesn't. It's there. And then Kavanaugh said something about passing it differently. I don't know. It's weird. But that being said, I agree with your sentiment, and it just, like I said, this does sort of head back to Dred Scott and these other things. If I was a black American right now, I'd be pretty pissed. I'd be pissed that, hey, they have now taken an amendment that was designed to make sure that we weren't stripped of our citizenship after enslaving us as people, that we were actually born in the country that we're born in, and then they just opened it up to the entire world. It's insanity.
Chris, and I'm not going to put Justice Roberts into this because that had nothing to do with Trump. We are screwed. That's old bad politics when this country was so stupid. It's for another day. But we have to call a spade here. And if I'm Donald Trump, you got to call out the Federalist Society every day and everybody else who recommended this, because remember, I want to remind the audience, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was an attorney for the ACLU, and they put her on the damn Supreme Court. That's where it all went wrong, and you don't trade a female for a female. All that thing as quickly as possible. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for the call, Chris. Yeah, you're right. We've allowed the wokeism to work its way into the Supreme Court. Now every decision is a 5-4, 6-3, and you've usually, and once again, occasionally we'll get the Amy Coney Barretts or the Justice Roberts, but you're right, Justice Roberts, he's been in there for a long time. But and then you've got these three now, and you mentioned Amy Coney Barrett or Amy Kobe Bryant, as I heard earlier today. So once again, at a certain point you go, yeah, I agree. It was definitely not Cocaine Mitch. It was, like I said, this was the turtle. And now as he's making his way out, going away, he's leaving us with as much bad as he did good, at least, if not worse. But it's bizarre, and you're absolutely right. When it came to Donald Trump's instincts from the first go-round, they were clearly not as good. And then, of course, like I said, when it comes to Clarence Thomas, he's still been solid, and Scalia's good, and Kavanaugh for the most part is good. A little weird, but you talk about a perversion of an amendment, and other than wokeism, how can you possibly think this somehow makes sense? We're just going to go ahead and make citizenship no big deal, and we're going to turn it over to people that are coming here from foreign hostile nations to America? No wonder nobody gave a crap that Eric Swalwell was banging Chinese spies like it was no big deal. No wonder nobody cared that Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy driver for 20 years. It's astonishing how bad the political system can be when you have corruption, which is going to happen anywhere, but then also malfeasance and then, complacency. And then, as you mentioned, we have to replace a liberal woman with a liberal woman or whatever. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she was there. Fortunately, she just stayed on too long and the Democrats weren't there. But still, it just goes to show I don't know how I look at someone who's supposed to be a conservative like Amy Coney Barrett and she lines up with these whack jobs on the Supreme Court. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. I will say this. If I was African American, if I was a black American, I'd be a little upset today. This is the new slavery. What? What do you mean, Chris? This is the new slavery. This is how the Democrats went from having black slaves in America. Republicans took them away from them, said you cannot enslave people, so they have gone and imported the third world to our country under the new slavery. We'll pay them slave wages. And they just want to keep doing it forever and ever and ever. All right, let's take a break. 281-558 KSEV. Thank you for the call, Chris. I try not to get too terribly emotional about this stuff because I do understand, once again, the only constant is change. It can be changed. Do we have the will of a nation to change it? My question is, I heard Dana Lash was talking about this earlier. Where's Thomas Massey on this? Where was he? Where was Marjorie Taylor Greene? Where was she? They're running down these fake rabbit holes brought up by people that didn't give a damn about Jeffrey Epstein when Biden was in office, but somehow it's Trump's fault. And they're going to call Trump a pedophile over and over again. There's as much evidence to support Trump being a pedophile as that the candidate for the Democrat candidate here for the U.S. Senate in Texas is the new pedo O'Rourke. I'll just say that. All right, 281-558 KSEV. I'm Chris X. We'll be right back. Get more of your calls on the other side.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Nix Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nix Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nixplumbing.com.
MPL 38548.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate and O'Hara Homes. I'm going to pose some questions that you might want to research. Why was JFK assassinated? Did we really land on the moon? Is the Earth really a globe, and is it the size they tell us it is? Did 9/11 happen the way we were told? Are pharmaceutical companies really there to cure diseases? Who are doctors trained by? Did God create everything on Earth that we need to stay healthy? Is fluoride in our water really helping us? What are those long trails of clouds left by airplanes, and what's in them? Did all the astronauts die in the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion? And is Elvis really dead? I search answers for everything. And if you're searching for a real estate company, give O'Hara Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393. Again, that's 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at oharare.com. I have a special guest with me, my granddaughter, Bailey.
God bless America, God bless Texas, and God bless my pop.
What if you could invest in real estate for pennies on the dollar? Find out how this Saturday at 2 p.m. on the Check a Pro Radio Show, when tax lien certificate expert Ted Thomas reveals one of America's best-kept investment secrets. Tune in this Saturday at 2 p.m.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Hey Houston, it's Dana Lash from The Dana Show. Join me weekday afternoons 2 to 4 p.m. on The Voice of Texas. We live in a society where everyone's like, look at me, look what I like. These are the brands that I like. Here's my hot take. This is how I like to do it. And they have a flag for everything. I like green chilies in my nachos. Where's my flag? You are listening to the home of The Dana Show, AM 700 KSEV and AM 1540 KGBC, The Voice of Texas.
And now, back to ChrisX Radio.
Welcome back to ChrisX Radio here on your Supreme Court Demonium Day, which also happens to be Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday is a whole lot more fun. I don't know if I'm going to eat tacos tonight. I don't think I am. I'm not feeling tacos today. I'm kind of a little bit tired. A little bit of scratchy throat. Got that. Once again, I fought this off like last week. Was it last week or the week before? I was getting a bit of a scratchy throat, but I kind of fought it off, and that's fine. And then now I'm getting it, so I don't know if I just kind of fought it off for a couple of weeks. That's happened to me for quite a few times over the years. As we get into the really hot days of the summer, get those summer colds that go around, man, there's a lot of people that are sick, a lot of cough stuff going around. And we had a birthday celebration for my brother last week, and then, I usually go out and we'll grab dinner in the evenings. So I got to be careful because, man, sometimes you go places and instead of picking up dinner, you pick up a little virus or something. So let's hope that is not the case. Anyway, all right, welcome back to the program. The Supreme Court voted today to reject President Trump's reform of birthright citizenship and the country's policy, which now grants the prize of citizenship to nearly anyone born in the United States. Either they're illegal aliens, birthright tourism, it doesn't matter. They somehow have interpreted the 14th Amendment, which I don't quite get at all. What do you guys think? 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. Once again, I agree with Justice Alito's his statement that birthright citizenship is grotesque. He said this is one of the most important decisions in the history of the court, and in my judgment, the court has made a serious mistake to insert birthright citizenship into the U.S. Constitution. He continued in plain language to show how the decision endorses birth tourism and would automatically grant full citizenship to foreign adults who have never lived a single day in the United States. I agree. You are now importing an entire generation of people that have no loyalty to your nation whatsoever. Kind of sounds like a bad idea. I don't know what you guys think. 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. Let's go to Fred. Fred, thank you for hanging on. Welcome to Chris X Radio.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Sometimes I wish the Republicans, Trump and his administration, would do things to show or make a mockery of certain decisions, such as, if I'm Trump, I would announce that I'm setting up a committee to explore how to get people into the country as quickly as possible to get them a birth and then get them out as quickly as possible. Call it the tourism or the quick, easy entry to become a U.S. citizen. What's CNN? What are the libs? What would they say to that?
It sounds to me like you're sort of trying to do a little reverse psychology on them. It doesn't work on Democrats and liberals because they don't care long as they get what they want, and they've proven that they have no standards. Double standards are the only standards that they follow, so it wouldn't make a difference necessarily to them. But then you have to look at the repercussions of what that would be for our country. Now, we sit right now, Donald Trump is doing more to make sure that we keep as many illegal aliens out of our country as possible, so that will cut down on the birthright tourism right there. But so you got to be real careful if you came up with something along those lines and then just institute it, and then all of a sudden you're doing the Democrats' dirty bidding for them. I think that would be a really slippery slope.
It's marketing. They really wouldn't do it, but I think the Dems, the libs would be all triggered. Oh, wait, what? Oh, okay, we support that, I guess. I mean, Trump's still a jerk, but yeah, we're against it. That means they'd be for Trump. They wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know how to answer it. Plus, it would come across as basically making a mockery of the situation. I don't know how much you just announce it. You're looking at forming a committee. Plus, some of the immigrants might want to say, geez, the Republicans' government's helping us. Maybe we need to look at voting for Republicans in the future. That's it. Just kind of give them what they're asking for.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Fred. Once again, that simply becomes a method of doing the Democrats' dirty work for them. The one thing they tend to do is stay in. You're right. They generally go, no matter what Trump says or what he does, they're against it. So what you're doing is you're flipping the script on them. They don't have any scruples. They have no standards. There's only double standards. They do not care. I don't think it would affect them one bit. In fact, they would go headlong and vote for it to make sure that it is instituted. And then now we've got another problem to contend with. So I think that's a misguided approach, I think, at best. And plus, everybody knows that Donald Trump is America first. And then now you've got a problem on the conservative side because those that don't want this would be like, what the hell is Donald Trump doing? What are we doing? Why are we not doing the bidding for the Democrats? Because that's what everybody's already furious over. That was why John Cornyn just lost his seat. So it's, like I said, it sounds like a dual-edged sword. I get your philosophy. If we lived in a logical world, in a world that wasn't crazy, I completely understand it. But unfortunately, we live in a world that is completely crazy, or a country that is heading that direction just every day further, and so they're going to go headlong into it. So we have to be very careful when dealing with this, and I mean, I don't know. It would be tough getting me on board with that idea, even though I completely understand what you're saying. I just don't want that instituted. And once again, I could see that completely alienating the conservative wing of the Republican Party, and then you quickly relegate yourself out of power, and then now we're controlled by the dirtbags that would do exactly what you're saying because that's what they're already trying to do. Thanks for the call, Fred. All right, 281-558 KSEV. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We got, 2 segments remaining? So if you want to get it, I don't know, what are your thoughts on birthright citizenship? I agree with Justice Alito and Justice Thomas. Now, oddly enough, we did get a couple of good rulings today. The Supreme Court says states can stop transgender athletes, men, from competing in women's sports. So there's that. And also struck out limits on coordinated spending between candidates and political parties. So now the Democrats will be upset, even though they're the ones that have been doing it regardless. So we can get into that. But what do you think? 281-558 KSEV, 281-558-5738. You're listening to Chris X Radio. We got 2 segments to go. We'll be right back.
Do you need money? Want to lower your monthly debt? Are you thinking about a cash-out refinance? Hi, it's Kathy from Baker Mortgage. A cash-out refinance can get you back in your comfort zone, and that's what it's all about. A recent client who closed with us had his payment go up about $300, but his monthly outgo was being reduced by $1,200, so giving him a net positive cash flow of $900. It's not about adding debt, but restructuring it in a way that makes sense. And this math totally makes sense. And please don't sweat it if your interest rate is going up a little or if you're extending the term. I can show you by taking a small amount of what you're saving monthly and applying it towards your mortgage, you're going to pay it off just as quickly and you'll be way ahead in the money game, which is where we all want to be, right? Remember, we want to help you, but we're not going to help you over a cliff. Baker Mortgage, 281-313-MOVE, or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender, license number 263213.
Thank goodness our weather experts are providing us with hurricane tracking charts and reminding us to be prepared for big storms. But they overlook one very important thing, the damage and destruction from broken limbs and uprooted trees. Call Louis Flory at Ability Tree Experts today, my friend for nearly 40 years. At 281-441-4179, and let him explain how this problem can be minimized with professional pruning. You see, when the tree canopy is too thick and dense, the tree can be completely blown over and tree limbs broken, causing terrible damage to the tree and maybe your home. Where tree limbs break, sap will ooze, and that attracts harmful insects. So you need to call Louis Flory today at 281-441-4179 and have his experts come out and professionally prune your trees to withstand sudden storms that are so frequent this time of year. Visit their website at abilitytrees.com. That's 281-441-4179. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question. How many times have you switched your health insurance in the last few years? How many times have you wanted to switch your health insurance the last few years? If you're in good health and pay your own insurance, you don't have to settle for scary high deductibles or unaffordable premiums. Let American Medical Plans find the right plan for you at a price you can afford. Call 833-500-PLAN. No, this is not some ridiculous Obamacare plan with no doctors and a limited HMO. And it's not some rinky-dink insurance company that doesn't cover a single claim. No, this is real coverage for you and your family. Go to the doctors and hospitals you choose. Stop shopping around hunting for the best deal. American Medical Plans will do the hunting for you. Get you a better plan at a better price. You owe it to yourself to see what they can do for you. Get it done before the rates go up. Call American Medical Plans, 833-500-PLAN. That's 833-500-7526. Or go to AmericanMedicalPlans.com. American Medical Plans. Quality plans managed by you.
Man, does today's decision by the Supreme Court make anyone afraid of Americans? Not so much. Welcome back to Chris X Radio. I'm the aforementioned X-Man. Glad to have you here with us. This is the penultimate segment. We have this segment and then one more remaining. And then we'll turn things over to the Craig Collins program, which comes on at 6 p.m. Monday through Friday right here on KSEV, the voice of Texas. So make sure you stick around for that, as the Craig Collins Show will take over at 6 p.m. But for the next 20 minutes, it's all ours, and that means it's all yours as well. If you want to join us, 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. We're talking about birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court ruled that somehow that's the law of the land. I mean, I know that's basically been the law of the land. They perverted the 14th Amendment, and then here's where we are. Now, President Trump actually laid out a pathway for Congress to end this. The president took to Truth Social, calling the ruling too bad for America, but noted that he makes clear the congressional route in which birthright citizenship can be ended. The Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is too bad for our country, but we can easily make it up in Congress through legislation with the support of the president that has now been determined by this process or during this process. Trump wrote, "No long and unwieldy constitutional amendment is necessary. Congress should start today to work on ending expensive and unfair to our country birthright citizenship. They will have my complete and total support." Okay. The president weighed in on other key cases that broke today as well in the Republicans' favor. Trump lauded the court's decision in West Virginia versus BPJ, which affirms that states have the right to ban biological boys and men from competing in girls and women's sports. Yeah, that's a big one. Once again, I can't believe this is a problem. You have dudes competing against chicks. I don't know what's more pathetic. The fact that you have these lefties that rally around boys participating in girls and women's sports, pretending to be girls. I did not realize that when I became, at this age, I guess in the last 20 years, that I would be able to simply just declare that I was a woman and now I have to be treated as a woman, and there are idiots that will line up and support that theory. Here's my question. If you can just determine that you're a woman, which completely goes against my DNA, my chromosomal structure, and all facts and logic, does that mean I could just declare myself African American? Could a white person just go, "Hey, I'm black all of a sudden, and I'm entitled to all of these things that people have made for, minority communities"? Is the left for that too? Are the Democrats for that? Or do they just simply give you those statements like, "Now you're being ridiculous"? Can you be more ridiculous than being a dude that is pretending to be a chick that is participating against women and dominating women's and girls' sports? Especially on the high school level and college or intercollegiate and then professional. By the way, how come there's not dudes playing in the WNBA? I don't watch it, so there's that. But it seems like there should be some trans dudes that should have moved over to the WNBA and just dominated. I'm sure you've seen by now Sophie Cunningham? Yeah, her pointing her finger at DeWanna Bonner during the Phoenix Mercury game. Sophie Cunningham is apparently she's a very talented athlete, not only basketball, but I was reading something. She was a kicker for her high school football team, and she was the prom queen and all these. But she is relentless. She's the enforcer of the WNBA, apparently. How come there isn't some dudes that have joined the WNBA as men, claiming they're women? Why hasn't that happened yet? They're all woke, right? And the other thing, too, is how come there hasn't been any women join the NBA? Oh, because there's a distinct difference between men and women when it comes to sports? Oh, that's why. Because it's retarded. It is ridiculous. It makes no sense unless you're a lunatic. And unfortunately, we live in a world where these lefty states, these Democrat-run areas, are ruled and ran by absolute lunatics. So the Supreme Court, they handed victory down to purveyors of common sense today, ruling that, yes, states can ban biological boys who are pretending to be girls from competing in women's sports in publicly funded schools. Justice Brett Kavanaugh penned a 6-3 majority's opinion, which essentially determined that Title X allows sex-segregated athletic teams. I always thought it was Title IX. Maybe it is Title X. I'm not sure. Anyway, so there's that. Okay. Huh. So that's interesting. But Brett Kavanaugh on the right side of things this time. He said, therefore, states can make such determinations accordingly. The Constitution and Title IX do not require an overhaul of women and girls sports throughout America. The ruling states in part that Title IX allows schools to provide separate women's and men's sports team defined by biological sex. And West Virginia has permissibly maintained female sports for biological females consistent with Title IX. Further, challenge laws do not classify based on gender identity or transgender status, but instead on the basis of biological sex, the majority determined. The classification issue readily satisfies rational basis review or intermediate scrutiny. Sorry. Did I just create a word? Scrutinary? They seem to be in scrutinary times. But it makes perfect sense. That is a perfectly logical ruling. Hey, listen, you were born a guy, you live as a guy, you are a guy, now you're pretending to be a woman, so you put on a dress, but there's still people like Leah Thomas, who was competing against women. He still had his junk fully intact. He was dating women while claiming to be a woman. So let me get this right. He is somehow determined that he's a woman, but he still dates women, and he has his junk. And he was dominant. He was like number 600 in the world, or 200, whatever it was, in women in swimming. And then he went and was dominating women swimming. And these poor girls in college and high school athletics, watching them have to stand there on a podium next to some dude who just dominated their sport is insane. I learned many, many, many years ago there's a significant difference between men and women regarding their physical prowess. When it comes to competition, women are undefeated in the birthing contest. No man has ever given birth to a child ever in the history of mankind and never will. Women are undefeated and will stay undefeated for at least the foreseeable future, at least in my opinion. But when it comes to things like sports, where you need maybe bigger upper body strength or maybe, strength that athletes require, you've noticed that, once again, you don't have a whole lot of women moving over to men's sports and dominating. In fact, generally, if they move over to men's sports, they get absolutely obliterated by even the most mediocre of men athletes. It's crazy. Anyway, all right, let's take a break. The officials are giving an update on the crash into the business over in Atascocita. There are 4 injured, 1 killed. A car crashed into the Nothing Bundt Cakes, which is terrible because I love Nothing Bundt Cakes. They're delicious. But it would be terrible if it was any business. But, man, our thoughts and prayers are out with the family of this person who was killed. That would suck, going in just trying to get a cake and then getting killed by a vehicle that ran into the store. This is over in Atascocita. All right, 281-558 KSEV, 281-558-5738. We'll take a break. We'll come back, wrap up today's show, and then turn things over at 6 p.m. to the Craig Collins Show.
Crack open a cold can of fun with Specs all summer long. Stock up on seltzers and canned cocktails at the lowest prices at Specs. Cheers to savings. Summertime means seltzers, ciders, canned cocktails, and more at the lowest prices. And with Specs, fill your cooler, stock up and save big on all your summer essentials at Specs. Wherever summer takes you, bring the flavor. Easy, breezy, ready to drink summer favorites are on sale at Specs. Summer's about sun, fun, and ready to drink cocktails. Find your favorite canned sips at Specs and save big all season long. And if you're looking to step up your cocktail game, get insider info on seasonal recipes, or online for same-day delivery, just go to specsonline.com, because the fun starts here. Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. Cheers to savings.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
All right, welcome back to ChrisXradio. You've reached the final segment of the program. We're going to wrap things up here at 6, turn it over to the Craig Collins Show, so stick around for that as we work our way out. If you want to get in, we do have time maybe to get one or two phone calls, 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. So one of the things I've mentioned today, and I've got a couple of things we'll wrap up with this, the Supreme Court also struck down limits on coordinated spending between candidates and political parties, which seems to going to help with the Republicans, at least, trying to hang on to their majorities in Congress, especially with the Republicans outraising Democrats 2-1 at least. The Supreme Court's ruling in National Republican Senatorial Committee versus Federal Election Commission removes limits on coordinated spending and gives candidates more direct control over larger amounts of money being spent on their respective races. This ruling serves as a loss for Democrats who have argued that eliminating the limit on spending would give more power to large donors. Now, the Democrats still have large donors. They're just a whole lot more shifty with the money. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote the majority opinion that limits are a severe infringement on First Amendment protected political speech. To uphold the political party coordinated expenditure limits here could therefore help consign political parties to continued second-tier status as compared to outside groups. Weakened political parties distort the political system. Senator Bernie Moreno, a Republican from Ohio, wrote, "This is a massive win for First Amendment that gives the power back to the political parties over the dark money super PACs. Voters deserve to hear directly from the candidates, not shady, nameless outside groups." Boy, that is no joke. That seems to be all we hear from these days. These little shady outside groups. You don't know who they are or what they're standing for. So you have to be very careful. So that's a big step in the right direction. So the Supreme Court got a couple things, 2 or 3 things right today, but then they still just botched that birthright citizenship thing, which is just crazy to me, at least in my opinion. All right, so I've been talking about this. I want to go ahead and read through this to let you hear the numbers. James Talafrico's lead in the U.S. Senate race has all but evaporated. A new poll from New York Times Siena has the race tied up at 47% between Talafrico and Ken Paxton. More revealing is a more recent poll from the University of Texas, which shows Paxton is up by 1.43 to 42%, all well within the margin of error. What is notable is that back in April, when there was still a contest between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton, Talafrico was up by 8 points, 34 to 42. Now, these polling weren't really talking about that because you were running against an undetermined candidate. But now, with the Real Clear Politics poll of polls, Paxton leads 45.2% to Talafrico's 44.6%. So once again, still just a point, but Talafrico's leads are all gone. There's really no polls that have him leading anymore. In fact, the betting markets have shifted drastically in Ken Paxton's favor. And those tend to be a little bit more, we'll say, accurate. The fact that the Democrat establishment, including former late-night host Stephen Colbert, he backed Talarico over Jasmine Crockett, including, once again, which is some issues with the FCC now from the way they were doing things in the primary. It kind of tells you everything you really need to know about how out of touch the Democrat Party is. Well, they're elites. Because for all of her flaws, and there are a lot of them, Jasmine Crockett could appeal to the Democrat base as well as black voters. The article goes on to say, the effeminate but totally not gay Talafrico has no appeal for black voters at all. And he's totally a phony, running around trying to drive a pickup truck and a cowboy hat with cowboy boots, and he's anything but. He states, I think this is Nolte over at Breitbart, states the Irishman Beto O'Rourke couldn't win Texas, and Talarico is Beto minus testosterone. Someone called him Pedo O'Rourke. He's Pedo O'Rourke, okay? That's what we've gone to. I don't know. People tell me things. His undying love for trans people is a little weird. But the truth is this, that Texas is still Texas, and the more Texans learn about James Talafrico, the less they like him, because he is a trans-obsessed mama's boy who's never held a real job. And he goes on to say, worst of all, he's twisted and perverted Christianity into something outright demonic. There's something deeply unsettling and even sinister about Talafrico, who looks and sounds harmless as he spreads heresy meant to deliberately fool people into believing, embracing transsexualism, homosexuality, and transvestitism. Vestitism? I'm not sure you pronounce. I didn't even know that was a word. And somehow all of these things are embracing Christianity, because that's what he does. He all surrounds them all under the cloak of Christianity. Jesus would be for transing the children. Jesus is for abortion. God is non-binary. There are actually 6 sexes. No, there are only 2. And now he's already done a 180 on all of these things. Because now, after he's pandered and voted with the radical left for years in the Texas House, here he is parading around as a moderate. I'm just like you. I go to church on Sunday. I'm good. He identifies as a Christian who hates Christianity, openly admits it. And he said that Christianity is a violent religion, which I begged Nolte to say he's no more of a Christian than Satan. Well, I don't know. I guess he claims to be more of a Christian than Satan. He's Talafrico. I mean, he's got a lot, like I said, he said a lot of interesting things. I always like to make sure that I play some of the things that Talafrico was saying so you can hear.
Did they teach you in Sunday school that Jesus Christ himself was a radical feminist?
No, they didn't.
The American flag is such a complicated symbol for most of us.
No, it's not.
God is non-binary.
No.
You can't call yourself a Christian and reject the stranger seeking asylum at our southern border.
Yeah, you can.
Our trans community needs abortion care too.
Modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6.
By the way, he said that wearing a mask in the Texas House. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Prophetic voices like Jesus have helped me reckon with my own whiteness.
If you need Jesus to reckon with your own whiteness, you lost me already.
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
By the way, he's already gone against all of these. He's done a 180 on all of this.
We are trying to fundamentally change the politics in this state and in this country. Yeah. No need to sit and cry over, your whiteness or your masculinity.
Has anybody other than James Talarico sat and cried over their whiteness or their masculinity? Yeah, that's called dead air. I'm listening. I'm waiting for somebody to say something. No, nobody has. Okay. All right, you guys need to go repent for your whiteness. Repent for your masculinity. Does it sound like he was pandering a little bit? Yeah, he is an extreme panderer. Pandering to the radical leftists within the Democrat Party, and that is how he ruled or attempted to rule in the Texas House. But now he's saying, hey, we're working on cutting your taxes. I helped bring the greatest property tax relief in Texas history. But did you? I drive a truck just like you. Does he? Does he really drive a truck? I go to church with his non-binary God. The guy is... Like I said, they call him Talafrico. He is a freako. Some people call him Pedo O'Rourke. Like I said, I haven't seen any signs that he's pedo, but I have seen this story before, where there's guys that sound effeminately heterosexual, and they claim to be heterosexual, but all of his girlfriends are beards from the campaign that work on his campaign. And him talking about fanboying over trans podcast hosts. I love how, by the way, that Dana Lash calls them podcast-istan. And then it's on his mind, the trans children. He just loves them. All right, gang, we're done. We'll be back for Hump Day tomorrow. Up next is the Craig Collins program. We'll see you